Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Corporations Committee. We'll call the meeting to order. Tonight, for the folks online, we are only going to do the bill that we were working on at the time of adjournment this morning, which was Senate File 184, Prohibition on Electronic Voting Equipment 2. We're not going to hear tonight Senate File 190, Election Transparency, or Senate File 193, Electric Utility Service Agreements, large loads. Tentatively, we're thinking of taking those two bills up at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. So with that, we're back live in person here. So, sir, would you reintroduce yourself and finish up your testimony that you didn't get to finish this morning?
Good afternoon, Chairman Chase, Corporations Committee. Thank you. My name is Richard Weber. I'm from Story, Wyoming. I'm here first off as a citizen. Secondly, I'm the operations manager, full disclosure, of BCR voter initiatives. We wrote the ballot initiative for prohibition of the machines. That was also the basis for the bill that you're looking at right now. The Wyoming elections check engine light is on and it's flashing, but we can't look under the hood due to the commercial for profit proprietary rules that are in our own statutes. We cannot compare the ballot to anything like the counter. We can't touch them. That prompted us to be concerned about the reconciliation of the ballot, because up to this point, all we could do is compare the counter on the machine to the image of the machine. We couldn't handle the ballot. And so the Wyoming elections has two problems. You have the voter registration, then you have the voting, and then you have the tabulating. SF 184 is targeted at tabulating because we're trying to stay within the confines of a single subject. We looked at tabulating, not all the other ancillary issues, although there are problems with those. When our clerks look at the machines, when they look under the hood to try to get the machines ready for election, majority of them have no idea what's going on inside the machines, what they're looking at, and they're not authorized to repair the problem. We have to call in a commercial vendor from another state who is not a qualified elector to handle our election equipment. And that person is not sworn. We've watched them have testimony of people that they come in, they repair the machine. In the case of like the electronic poll books, put it right back online, hasn't gone through any testing, validation, or certification process. The things we find very disturbing with our check engine light being on, ES&S offers no warranty for their equipment. They don't stand behind it. In fact, we pay almost $500,000 a year in maintenance fees, licensing fees, and agreements in order for them to provide services to us. The federal EAC, Federal Election Assistance Commission, does not endorse the product or the software, as we testified this morning. I don't think an interim session is warranted at this time, even though there are a lot of issues to be addressed. I think there are process issues that the Secretary of State can address when he develops the election handbook. This is not a process issue. The two components to manage running an election system where you tabulate is the human component, which is the clerks, and the technical component, which is the equipment. We have problems in both of them. The machines are unreliable, and we've had failure all over the state. The inability to audit the logs inside the machines is contrary to our Constitution. To have a transparent election, you have to be able to look at the logs in the machine to see who's had access to them, see when hard drives, flash drives, other things have been connected to other sources, and we cannot do that. The cast vote records are not available to us. The source codes are maintained in China, and the source codes operate the machine codes, which operate the machines. The clerks do not follow the statute in preparation of testing and using equipment on the EAC approved list And that is exacerbated by a 250-page code, election code that we have in Title 22. What I'm saying is it's too complex. There's so many rules, we're setting them up for failure.
So, sir,
Yes, sir.
you think maybe you could shorten it a little bit?
Trying to.
I mean, we don't really need the long version.
Okay,
It's been a really long day. We'd sure appreciate it.
will do. If you take the machines out of the equation, all the human error goes with it, because the human error in testing and processing, handling machines is gone. We reduced Title 22 from 250 pages to 25 pages when you go to a hand count. That eliminates federal election overreach in our elections. That eliminates hacking, cyber surveillance, cybersecurity, all the things that are issues. We spend $12.7 billion a year with CISA to defend them. When you take them out, we don't have to defend them anymore. The clerks are no longer exposed to liability, lawsuits, felony certification problems, canvassing and audit problems that we're faced with right now. Hand count is always the go-to to validate any machine error. Case in point, Weston County case, when we look at anything, the alternate method specified in our statute is actually hand count. And that's the only time we get to hand count a ballot is if we have to go to Plan C. It makes more sense to reduce all this liability, cut the cost by $4.6 million. Right now, we're faced with a $14 million purchase to get new machines to replace the stuff we have to update the software. The controversy over hand count by the clerks that was in Campbell County and Weston County, both of them refused to use the US case logic method that we used. They preferred to invent their own method, and they set themselves up for failure. And just in one, if I showed you the ballot that they used, one ballot had 6 errors on it. When I do a hand count in a normal, when I looked at all the other states' elections that we had, you're lucky if you see 1 error in 750 ballots. So the timing and everything else that they used in the Campbell County hand count was thrown way off by over 700%. So all their costs are going to be off, all their hours are going to be off. I ran a control state, I was at a control table. I did 249 ballots in 12 races. That equates to 2,988 ballots. I did it with 0 errors in 4.4 hours. A table with 3 other people, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, validating and auditing. So this is doable, and it's doable at half the price. The fixed prices that we have for election processing right now won't go away. We'll still keep our clerks, current amount for judges, none of that changes. Ordering, printing, processing ballots doesn't change because we're going to keep the same ballots and same procedures. I'm not going to go back through all the Weston County failures, but as a result of the hand count, it did discover errors in the commissioner's race when we started looking at Chip Nyman's race. We found that, Secretary of State already testified, they would never have found it because we don't have an audit system in Wyoming to do that. If that race had been any closer at 52 to 47, they would never have seen it, and a wrong candidate would have got elected. We're at risk in lawsuits in Wyoming, the way we are set up right now. If Trump got 270, and we got sued for not following our own statutes, and we had to forfeit our 3 electoral votes because the Democrats sued us, that would have dropped him to 267, and he wouldn't be our president right now. That's the minimum of it. SF 184 eliminates all these problems. That's the short version of it. It takes all that out. Take the machines out of the equation. You take the complexity out of the equation, the risk and exposure to the clerks, you reduce their hours. You're going to put 6 months of time back in their day because they don't have to pull election machines out in February and start programming, building test decks, going through all the processes of getting ready.
How about if I give you a couple more minutes?
I'm done, just pretty close.
We're doing the best we can here.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll stand for questions.
Great, thank you. questions. Senator Landon.
I do have two questions,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and appreciate your testimony. Two things that you said that I just wanted a little follow-up on. You say that the clerks don't follow statutes. That's a pretty blanket statement and a little concerning to hear that. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And also, you say that there is extreme liability for using these machines. What exactly is that liability? So clerks following statutes, and then what's that liability you referred to?
Mr. Weber.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. When we talk about legal liability issues, the letter we wrote Secretary of State, when you certify election results or testing results, you're making a statement, and our statute says if you make a false statement, that's 5 years in prison. That's a liability. They are bonded, but we shouldn't have to go down that road. When they say they conducted a logic and accuracy test, for instance, the logic and accuracy test, the test deck itself says you have to have each candidate in each race has to have a different number, and they put zeros in, or they put the same numbers for all the candidates. They didn't follow statute. That's a liability. That's not, you can't certify a test. Our statute were written off of the ES&S contract and compliance and performance measures that the commercial vendor requires. ES&S escapes every lawsuit that they've been in because they always point back to the clerks and they say, we're not guilty, we don't have a warranty, number one. Number two, the clerks did not follow the testing guidelines required by the EAC in order to verify that the machines are ready for an election. They walk away and they leave the clerks holding the bag in every state that this has happened in. They always point to them and said, you messed this up. You didn't test them properly. In a lot of cases in Wyoming, in one county, I'll just pick one, they didn't even test the express vote machines. That's a violation of HAVA, that's a violation of EAC, and it's a violation of our statutes. They have to be tested, whether they think anybody's going to use them or not. So we consistently cut corners. Wyoming's always been on a good system of we trust each other, handshake. You know, the last guy told me how to do it, and this is how we've always done it. This is the first year Wyoming's election systems have ever been challenged, reviewed, or tested. Somebody's pulled the records and looked at them, and that's how we came about this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Weber? Thank you, Mr. Weber. Ma'am, we'll go to you next.
Mr. Chairman Case
Thank you.
and committee members, I'm very much in awe of you guys with all of your hard work, so thank you for being back here. My name is Elena Campbell. I'm Sheridan County. Keep this brief. The bottom line is this: our clerks can certify one thing with certainty, and that is how many ballots in each of our elections were counted. They cannot certify that the votes were counted correctly, because ballots are run through a very complex black box with multiple vulnerabilities. I'll touch on just one of those vulnerabilities. We have long since been concerned with connectivity with our tabulators out in the precincts and the central counting locations. I'm going to share with you a brief story that reinforces our concern. It was during the primary this year. An election judge at a busy polling place worked with other judges, and they were zipping up the machines, putting the security tapes on them, getting them all ready to get transported over to the clerk. As the chief judge was getting the car still loaded up, he still had that to do. This election judge, call her the witness, had 5 minutes to drive home. He had 8 to 10 minutes at least to get over to the clerk's office, and still had to unload his stuff and get it up to the second floor. 5 minutes, she's still sitting in her driveway, and she gets a text from a friend of hers who gives her the result of one of the precinct committee people's races. And the witness texted her back and said, how on earth could you know that? Dave was still packing up his car. He still had to get over to the courthouse, unpack the stuff, and get up to the second floor. And in essence, the reply was, a little birdie told me. Well, it turns out that this was the wife who texted this information of the head IT guy in the courthouse who was working the elections that night, okay? So, and I can fill you in on more details. I won't take your time right now, but I'm happy to answer questions anytime you'd like on that. But I would like you to couple that experience of ours that we had firsthand. She was afraid of reporting it. She didn't know how she would be received by the sheriff. She really was very afraid. Close neighbors involved. I mean, she was very uncomfortable. She did go to the election supervisor in our county, and she also went to the Secretary of State, who told her that if you file a report, then I can follow up with this. And she really was uncomfortable going out on a limb as one individual. But couple
So,
it
ma'am,
with
in that
recent,
instance,
I'm sorry,
Can I ask, if so, no official complaint was filed in that instance?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, because it's truly a smoking gun. It's absolutely a smoking gun. But please combine that with recent testimony over in Milwaukee. They use the same systems we do. They use Verizon. They use the DS200s, DS450s. And a Verizon employee was deposed. I'm just going to summarize the findings. ES&S, along with Verizon, begin with a cellular connection at the municipal clerk level. Then transmission goes into a zero tunnel, combining all polling place election data transmissions from radio access networks. That's otherwise known as RAN. And they combine all of the polling place, radio access networks into and onto one line. That line is on the internet, which goes into what they call cradle point router. There are a couple of other different kinds of routers that might be used, Albert Sensor, Falcon Endpoint, at the county level. Then this goes into EMS, which is our election management system. So we have serious vulnerabilities with the black box, very complex machines. I trust our clerks. They can absolutely run really good elections. Their vulnerability, our vulnerability as constituents, and your vulnerability as people who come up for reelection, is that we're really not sure what's happening behind the scenes of these machines. So I also want you guys to know you're in the national spotlight. Okay, this thing has taken on a life of its own. Lots of posts regarding what's going on in the Wyoming legislature. So the bottom line for legislators is that it is truly your ultimate responsibility to secure our elections. The legislature and the legislature only is authorized to take a really close look at this and fix it. And so you have to be brave. I know that this is really a huge change. Please be brave. Please understand that we're vulnerable. It's not that we don't trust our clerks, but we truly do not trust outside vendors. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, questions for Ms. Campbell? Any questions for Ms. Campbell? Any questions? Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
the testimony you gave about Milwaukee and Wisconsin's situation with the Verizon, is it your testimony that that is the exact same system we use in Wyoming?
That I think it's my testimony that absolutely that could be happening in Wyoming, because they use Verizon, they use ES&S, same thing. And so I can't remember, is it appropriations who has subpoena power? Get some folks in and find out, really, do we have some of these routers? We're not allowed to look in the machines. Are there RANs? in there, what sort of communication is going on. But that one example tells us that, I mean, that we have the text timestamps for when the information came in to our witness's phone.
In
We
Wyoming?
also have a timestamp for when our chief clerk or our chief judge delivered USBs, which under our system right now, that's the way our clerks load up into EMS. They use those USBs, and then all of the information is combined and sent as unofficial results down to our Secretary of State. And so our clerks cannot know that this is happening. It's not their fault. It's faulty equipment. And we really want to be secure in our elections. And so it's a big lift, it's a big ask, but we truly beseech you to understand that we are vulnerable. One more thing I'll add, just today I'm listening to investigations going on around the country right now. This information is going to start coming out like a fire hose, okay? It's really been kind of tucked under the table and under the rug for a while with the new administration who has keen interest in this subject. There are already some court cases getting started down in Florida, North Carolina, Wisconsin. Probably we're going to see Arizona. There are big problems all over the place, and you're going to discover that the systems being used they're very much in common. Doesn't matter if you're talking about Dominion or ES&S, they have very common roots and very fundamentally similar operating systems.
I'm going to try to get you to wrap it up because
Pardon me?
you were just answering my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not understand it? I'm sorry, sir.
Well, we didn't really give you an open fishing license to go back in the water. So can you wrap it up for us, ma'am? Because you were done with your questions, and I had asked you a question of whether Wisconsin experience applied to Wyoming, but you've kind of gone a little farther.
Oh.
So maybe we can get to a point where we kind of get other people on to testify?
Oh, from Wisconsin, you bet. I bet you I could.
No, I meant in this room, ma'am, people that are waiting.
No, well, I mean, it's available, it's public information right now.
I don't think you understand me. I'm trying to get you to finish your testimony.
I'm finished with mine. I can't
Okay.
add anything to what I've told you.
Any other questions for the lady? Thank you very much. Who
Thank
else would
you.
like to testify to the committee?
Ma'am, one
You've had your
thing.
shots at it. You've had 2 shots at it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Crenny, didn't you testify this morning? Okay, go ahead. Let's fill up these chairs.
You had a different jacket on this morning. So it's a different deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Committee. Now testifying is Joey Carenti, member of the Carbon County Canvassing Board. I had a different testimony, but I've heard some things that I try not to be emotional, but I'm a little irked. Accusing people of crimes who participate in certified elections. I certify elections. I've certified elections in Wyoming and Carbon County. And anybody that knows me knows I'm not shy to have the criminal thing thrown at me, but it's not always true, and I normally prove it wrong. And in this case, I'm going to do that again. Here in Wyoming, we live each day with courage. So if somebody's witnessed a crime and they haven't filed a report, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't make more laws that they won't report if they're not going to live each day with courage or do what has to be done. 3 people in Wyoming cast votes for president. We might think it all works different, but we have presidential electors. So there's no way a lawsuit is going to come in and say the presidential electors didn't do the right thing, because we do not have an unfaithful elector law. So the big boogeyman that Donald Trump might not have been president, that the current president would not be president because of that, yeah, they can throw a lawsuit. But we also have backups in the vaults of every ballot cast in Wyoming for 2 years. So that would become part of discovery, and that lawsuit would be pretty short-lived. I'm going to move on to the testimony I kind of had prepared and try to keep it short.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but it would be nice if we all shortened up a
Yeah,
little bit. Go ahead.
I'm not looking at a bill here. I'm looking at about 5 bills, and I don't think any of them are ready for prime time. Great concepts, things that need to be worked out, but the 2 biggest questions I have, if you don't get enough volunteers to be hand counters, what do? Because when you don't have enough volunteers to be election judges, you shut down a polling location. But that's fine, they can vote somewhere else. You can't say, we can't count your ballot because we just don't have enough people. I don't like the electronic poll books. I do not like centralized voting locations. But we have them, they're not restricted. So if any of the electronic poll books cannot be on the internet, you can now go around that county and vote at every centralized voting location and not be able to know until afterwards, never be able to pull those ballots back, and only be able to prosecute the person if you can prove they did it. So with that, I would love to work on this with the bringer of the bill and the people that have concerns, but I think we're looking at taking pieces out of a Rube Goldberg machine that's going to break things. As soon as that bowling ball drops, Tweety Bird's not coming out at the other end. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Correnti? Thank you, Mr. Correnti. How about the gentleman right there? Go ahead, introduce yourself.
There it is. I would defer to the gentleman over here who's got to drive to Newcastle yet tonight.
Okay, let's go to you, sir. Tell us your name and.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Stanley Jasinski. I'm from Weston County.
Would you say that again? I'm sorry.
Stanley Jasinski. I'm from Weston County.
Yes, sir.
What I'm going to testify today, I witnessed as an election judge and as secretary for the Weston County Republican Party. I think it'd probably be great if I could just start off, Mr. Chairman, through you, but answer the question that Senator Landon had about clerks violating state statute.
If you wish, go ahead.
Okay. So our county clerk, as you probably know or don't know, we had a huge anomaly in the 2024 general election. As a result, it led to hand counting of two races, House District 1 and two county commissioners. During that hand counting, we came prepared as certified judges who had asked to be trained in hand counting to help our county clerk in this endeavor. We were denied that. I was trained by our county clerk as an election judge. She denied that. What she did was she appointed one Democrat and one Republican and then closed their county clerk's office without any public notice, without any note on the door, for over 3 hours while we did this hand count. I believe that's a violation of state statute. During the election night, when this anomaly was discovered by Secretary Gray, Secretary Gray called our county clerk. She didn't pick up the phone. He couldn't get a hold of her. He had to dispatch our county sheriff to go and contact her. And what she did in response was reply by text message. I believe that's a violation of the state statute. Express machines. I was there for the machine testing as a representative of the Republican Party. I asked her if she was going to test the express voting machines. She said, no, we only use them once in the primary. We don't need to do that. I believe that's a violation. At the counting for the absentee and mail-in ballots, where it's required to have a Republican and Democrat election judge present, we didn't have election judge. Our chairwoman for Weston County Republican Party was there as a poll watcher. And when she brought this up to our clerk and said, we don't have representation, our clerk said, I believe that you would work. I mean, in other words, I believe you'd qualify to do that. And she said, I'm a poll watcher. I'm not here as election judge. So we were denied representation during the hand counting of mail-in and absentee ballots. During the general election, the county clerk only delivered Republican ballots to all the precincts in Upton, Osage, and Newcastle. When the election judge notified her of that, she took them. We hire a representative from ES&S Machines to be there in case there's a machine problem.
Who's we? Your group?
No, the county clerk hires them,
Okay.
but they use our money. So I say we hired them, right? That's our taxpayer money.
Just trying to be clear here.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I appreciate that. So what she did was she used this gentleman from ES&S Machine to deliver ballots all around Weston County in unsealed envelopes with no chain of custody. I believe that's a violation of state statute. Okay, so I'm going fast. One thing I learned here today is how much you guys work when you're here, and I appreciate that. So I'm trying to go fast. I witnessed the testing of the machines for both the primary, but I'll just stick to the general. The testing for the general election of the machines, When I showed up that day, our county clerk said one, against our appeals to do it earlier, she waited to the last day, the Friday before the election, or 14 days before the election to do the machine testing. As a result, when she went to open the box to get her test deck, she couldn't find it. So what she did was her and her county clerks had ballots all over the place, filling out ballots, trying to replicate the test deck from ES and machines. That took almost 2 hours, over 2 hours. Our testing that day took 5 hours, and for us, we only test 3 machines, a backup machines, and express voting machines. It should only take about 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Just to make up these ballots, it took over 2 hours. We were there for 5 hours. Our machines failed. We asked for a complete logic and accuracy report. She said, no, you don't need that. Doesn't matter what happens on individual precincts. All you need is the general printout, which is 6 pages. So our testing failed miserably that day. She was ordered to do another one. That next test came 6 days before the general election. I believe that's a violation of the state statute. And when I walked in there for the second testing, and she had to be told to do this by Secretary Gray, the second testing. I said, are you going to use the same ballots that you filled out for the original test? She said, well, here's the thing. After that 5-hour day, I went back in my office and I had a temper tantrum and I was throwing things all around the office. And one of the things I threw was a packet of ballots. And when it broke open, there was the test deck from the ES&S machines. Because she waited to the last minute, she didn't even look to see what she needed for this testing. We spent 5 hours on a testing that failed miserably, only to go to another testing that failed. But to have that test deck, because she had a temper tantrum.
So it might be good if we kind of moved off of her and talk about the bill. I get your point
Okay, I
about
thought
her.
this was about the machines.
Yeah.
The accuracies of machines.
So with all these things that you talked about, did you complain to the county attorney? And did they file charges? Was there any legal things?
Yes, we filed a complaint with the governor's office. Some of us, yep,
And what happened with that?
it's under investigation.
And so,
We've 9 of us filed a complaint charging her with malfeasance and misconduct and asking for a removal from office.
is that the proper place to file that complaint? And I don't know, I'm just asking.
Yes, we actually.
But I was wondering about the county attorney.
We talked to the county commissioners and the county attorney. We didn't file a complaint with him because we did this as a result of at a meeting. We had a public forum for the public following the huge anomalies, which I'm sure you've heard about with the House District 1 races and the 2 commissioner races. The only 2 races we were allowed to hand count, and we found problems with both of those. And so it was at our meeting that we decided to, as a group, to file this complaint. I know the county attorney Stoken is aware of all this. We talked about it at county commissioners meetings where he was present. It presented all the problems we were having and the result of it. Yeah.
Just strikes me that he would be the person to enforce and bring legal consequences in Weston County. But
Well, so it's my understanding that the Weston County attorney represents the county commissioners and not the people of Weston County. Well, that's my interpretation, okay? I'm not saying I'm right, but he was made well aware of it. He was present during the hand counting. So yeah. Okay,
okay. Maybe we'll talk afterwards.
I just wanted to say that I was there for these machines. I was also there as a poll in 2022 for our machine testing. I signed off on these machines as a representative of the Republican Party, and they failed. And they failed to retest. The complete package that we wanted and actually got as a complete test results was 22 pages. not 6 pages, which we were given initially. And every time along the way, our county, I was only brought up what I said because one of the senators asked how county clerk, and I'm not speaking for all county clerks. I'm only counting for Weston County, okay?
I think we understand that.
Yep.
Can you kind of bring it where you want to go with this?
I would just say that as far as Weston County, the people no longer trust machines. The machines.
That's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Well, the machines, in our case, they read lines, okay? So I don't know if you're familiar with how the big, huge anomaly happened in our county, but what happened was when our county clerk got the initial ballots, she realized that under House District 1, Representative Chip Nyman's race, it didn't list 2-year term underneath. Or if you're familiar with all that, then I won't go over it again, because I don't want to waste, take your time, but.
Yeah.
But it pushed everything down when she corrected it. And then the machine just reads lines. And if there's an oval in that line, it'll read it. But if it's a blank space, there'll be
It threw the spacing off is what you, yeah.
Right. But also, I firmly believe that somebody with the key and the hard drive to these machines can manipulate any election they want. And the people, we have people now that were ran for election or re-election that firmly believe they may have won and they weren't.
Okay,
And I appreciate you, I appreciate you letting me testify today.
you bet.
Yep.
We're all trying to
I
get
stand
through
for
this.
question. I understand you're busy.
Yeah, let's see what people have to say for questions. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hi, Stanley. Thanks for
That's all
making the drive. Sorry you guys have all had to wait all day, but so I guess I really appreciate all the work you guys have done because, and especially Weston County, we kept hearing this can never happen in Wyoming, this doesn't happen in Wyoming, and then something happened. And so we're all very aware of that. I have a concern, like after, we've been here, we started at 7:30 and we're just, not even done now. And I've been an election judge and, helped take the ballots into the courthouse and all of that. And we struggle in Goshen County to get election judges even. And so to think about then after a day like today, hand counting, to me, I would be overwhelmed to do that. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of a happy medium we could find where possibly we look at passing the Haraldson bill for now and do a study on how this would all work, because I'm cautious that while we want to fix something, we don't make it more harder. Because in Goshen County, we really have a hard time finding election judges, just the election judges, and they are all older, and we have probably 12 polling places. So have you considered that, like a phased-in approach rather than just, this bill right now we do? Have you thought about a phased-in systematic approach so that we could be comfortable moving that direction?
Sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe that we have gone about educating ourselves, taking courses on hand counting paper ballots. And if this bill was to pass, I believe we wouldn't have any problem in Weston County getting election judges to stand up. And it wouldn't even be the election judges that were there working 16 hours on that day. We could have backup judges that could take over once the counting started. I was there for the hand counting, and I believe it took 3.5 hours or so. I believe if we had as many election judges that were there that day and ready to do it, we could have cut that in half. I firmly believe that. So I don't believe there would be a problem personally. I think people want election integrity, and if they're given the option to be part of it, I think they'll take it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move down. Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So any concern in your experience as you look at going to a hand count, any concerns about privacy? A lot of the precincts up in that neck of the woods, I think, are pretty small. I mean, not very many people in a precinct, for example. Any concerns about privacy when you get a whole bunch of people counting ballots?
Sir.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so. There's no names on these ballots. And we count the absentee and mail-in ballots in Weston County. I think we counted over 1,000. A third of our election was absentee and mail-in ballots. And that's, nobody had a problem with that, because there's no way to identify who cast that ballot.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir. Let's go to this gentleman.
Thank you, Chairman Case and Senators. My name is Gary Bjorkland. I'm from Platte County, and I'll try and make this brief. I listened to the county clerk say that there were no complaints filed about the testing of the machines. And that's a little bit of a misnomer there. They're playing word games. A letter, an email, or a verbal complaint does not count. So if you send a letter or any of those things to the county clerk, they're ignored. They don't count. But they won't tell you that. They just say, okay, we'll take that under advisement. Thank you very much. We appreciate your input. And I'm sure that there's a circular file that they put that in. What they don't tell you is that according to Title 2210-110, which one of the ladies from the county clerks quoted and said that there's no report. Well, that says that a complaint must be filed on a complaint form, and it must be turned into the district court, not to the county clerk. So if you wanted to complain, you wouldn't find anybody to tell you, hey, that's a great idea, but you need to take it over to the county, to the district court. So the time required to train and manually count that you heard testified was grossly misstated. The time frame and the cost is not the issue. Accuracy is the issue, and that's the most important thing. We've got to see that the vote cast is the vote that's counted, and you don't know that with these machines. And you can't recount them. If they do a recount, it's through the same machine, and you're going to get the same result. So the clerks cannot guarantee that you're going to get, that guy's going to get his vote. I don't trust the machines. It's electronic, and it can be manipulated. And you've heard that from experts that have all over the place that have done that. So Dominion, ES, and S is deceiving you when they say that, well, the modem that was installed in those can be turned off, because what they don't tell you is it can be turned back on again. And I'm open to questions.
Would you mind giving that title in the law, that number again?
It was Title 2210-110.
Okay. Committee questions for Mr. Berkland? Any questions? Thank you. We'll look that up.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Who else would like to testify before us? Let's just fill up the chairs. Try not to be repetitive, and we're going to try to finish up tonight. How about you, sir? You look like you're ready to go. Let's go.
Thank you, Chairman Case, committee. My name's Keith Miller. I'm from Platte County. I'm a retired system engineer, having spent 41 years in the engineering disciplines. I was fortunate enough to receive 3 degrees in mechanical engineering from the University of Wyoming, culminating in a PhD, and briefly taught in the mechanical engineering department before moving on to broaden my engineering experience in systems engineering in a national security laboratory in New Mexico, working there 32 years, 2 months, 2 days, but who was counting? I feel obligated to use some technical terms that may not be familiar with everyone, but I will honestly attempt to make them relevant and clear to the topic of whether or not electronic voting machines are secure. That's the very narrow topic that I wish to address. I think these broader topics are very important, but I feel very distressed that the very question that these machines are secure is not being adequately addressed. The main point I wish to make is that the data flowing to and from voting machines can flow over the power lines to which they are attached. I'm amazed when I hear county clerks state that the electronic voting machines are fully secure after they load the ballot software and the machines are secured with cable ties, making them invulnerable to tampering. Those devices, the cable ties, make the machines, direct connection to the machines difficult, but that is not the most likely scenario when one wants to hack into that system. This is especially questionable when the machines are plugged into wall outlets for their power. While I'm not an expert at the design of electronic voting machines, it is my honest opinion that those who make such statements that they are secure do not know what they don't know. Anytime that there is a conducting segment, wire, bar, or any shape of object that conducts electrons attached to that device, that conductor is a prime path for data transmission and command transmission to the machines. Information can be superimposed on those conductors whether or not power is flowing through those conductors. You can readily buy devices that allow you to transmit broadband data, digital data over power lines. The devices are called power line Ethernet adapters. You can buy them from Amazon for $79.99, pairs of them. I use such adapters in my home to link my smart televisions to the internet, which avoids latency and delay problems in the transmission of video data. Ethernet data transmission is very broadband, meaning you can transfer several hundred gigabits of data per second with such Ethernet protocols. Ethernet networks were the first available for home and business networks, preceding Wi-Fi networks, which we are always pointed to as the voting machines can be checked for RF radio frequency transmissions. They are still used, Ethernet networks are still used in industries today because they need ability to transfer very large amounts of data, such as video data. I can give you links that will describe how power line adapters actually work and understand how such devices are used to set up computer networks today. I'll not bore you with those details right now, but if you like that link, I'll be happy to provide it.
You bet. It'd be good if you could think about the time tonight, because it's going late.
I have 2 more paragraphs.
Okay.
Such devices can be designed to be housed in single ASIC chips, power line adapter electronics, which make them very inconspicuous in the broader electronic networks, such as in voting machines. Voting machines do not deal with large amounts of data, and such information can be readily compressed, bundled, and burst transmitted in communication packets with very little chance of being detected. In fact, it looks like noise on the transmission lines. Billions of bits of data can be transferred in microseconds using Ethernet protocols. I understand that the manufacturers of voting machines do not allow physical inspection of their hardware, which is about the only way that I know of that one can assure that devices such as power line adapters are not present. The idea is not credible that once the ballot software is loaded into voting machines and seals are attached, that they are tamper-proof. As soon as the machines are plugged into the power outlets, it becomes a real possibility that they are insecure, especially if there is malicious electronics built into the machines. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Okay, questions from Mr. Miller? Questions from Mr. Miller? Thank you, Mr. Miller. How about you, ma'am?
Good evening, Chairman Case and members of the committee. My name is Lucinda Houchins. I live in Wheatland, Wyoming, and I come before you to support Senate File 184. On Monday afternoon, and again this morning, you heard cost estimates from the Campbell County Clerk that, when compared to my own analysis, appear to be highly exaggerated. And knowing that your decisions on this bill could very well come down to its projected costs, I want to make the case that hand counting is less expensive, much less expensive than using the unreliable and unprovable electronic voting machines for elections. And you should have both of these handouts in your folder. And I did some calculations, and based on what it does, the supplies, so the question remains, how many hours does it take to train to hand count? I myself have attended more than one of the training sessions for the prize-winning method developed by Rick Weibel of uscase.org. And not one of them was longer than 2 hours. You can learn this. It would be wonderful if the senators could have an extra hour and a half to learn this, because I think once you do it, you have hands on it, you would believe how wonderful it is. It's just amazing. Next question, how many ballots can be counted in 1 hour? For my calculations on the handout, I used 200 ballots per hour. I know it's not the high 300 ballots that have been recorded using Weibel's method. Another question, ideally, how long to count all the ballots? I used 3 hours in my mathematical formulas, thinking that the teams could begin when the polls close at 7 p.m. at night until 10 p.m. This will determine how many teams are required to get those ballots done in 3 hours. There are 4 people on a team. So when you know the teams, you just multiply by 4, okay? And that's in my calculations there. If you pay each person $15 an hour, 3 hours of counting and 2 hours of training, that would be $75. That's how I got the total labor costs. Now, I know the Campbell County model is projected 4 hours to count, but the county based my calculations for Campbell County based on 200 ballots per hour would require 31 4-person teams, 124 people, costing $9,300. That's for Campbell County. My projected costs for the Platte County general election came to $3,877, and the primary was less because there are fewer ballots, $2,197. So the last question, what does Platte County pay to ES&S every year? About $11,000, and that's to ENS just for the service agreement. There are more charges. I don't know all those charges to formulate the ballots and such. That's passed on to the cities. But just the county expense is $11,000. For 2 years, that's $22,000. We pay that much every year, even if we don't have elections. Wait, my calculations don't include everything, because as our county clerk has told us, they start working on that, and here's your labor, your big labor for those machines, in February of an election year, to get ready for the primary and the general elections and all the testing, the logistics and accuracy testing that has to be done by law, by statute on those machines. So there's a lot of numbers. My figures only talk about hand counting costs, okay? And I think the way I read the bill was we didn't expect the people, I've been an election judge, and I know those are long days. You get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you don't leave till about 8. By the time everything's cleaned up, at least 8 o'clock at night, okay? And you have very few breaks. That kind of an election judge would never be expected to do the hand counting. You would have to find fresh people to do that. I think one suggestion was brought up, well, maybe you could use, like when we have to serve jury duty. Maybe that could be incorporated to it, something like that, but train them. And honestly, it only takes 2 hours to learn this fabulous method. So my question is, why are we paying more for the machines, which to this day, no one can verify that my votes get tabulated the way I cast them, when we can pay far less for hand counting? Now is the right time to switch now to transparent and cost-effective hand counting for all of our future elections. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Mrs. Hutchins?
Houchins. How do you do chins, Houchins? I
Houchins?
taught kindergarten art. for a long
Any
time.
questions for Mrs. Houchins? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, to you. Green light?
My name is Mark Kaufman, business owner, Platte County. And mine is going to be short for you guys. I agree with everything that's been said here. I support the bill. I like to see it moved on. We were involved with this, putting it together, and I want to mention that we included the county clerks. They had 7 proposals. We implemented all of them. They only had 7. We did them all. 7 pages. Okay. And the only other thing that I want to touch on is I was told that Jerry Nadler sued for the removal of the electoral votes in 1985 or 1986, so it could happen.
That was, the citizens sued,
Jerry Nadler sued to have somebody's votes, electoral votes removed.
in Wyoming.
Ohio.
Oh, Ohio, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Mr. Kaufman? Thank you very much, sir. Let's get 3 more people up here. Just checking, this is you guys' first bite at the apple, right, on this bill? Correct. Okay, go ahead. Who's going to go first? Ms. Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Marguerite Herman here for the League of Women Voters. And I want to say that the League has always and is very strongly in favor of free and fair and secure elections. And that secure is underlined in bold type. And I appreciate all the passion in this room for secure elections. I think it's admirable, and we're definitely on the same page with there. But we contend this is not the way to do it, to make elections more secure than they are. Just drawing on the Campbell County Clerk's experience with her test on there, what it seems to me is, yes, that hand counting ballots works if the ballots are extremely simple, with no splits, if there is absolute security for the printed ballots, as they're printed out ahead of time and stored and handled physically by people, the chain of custody, et cetera, then it works then. If there is a very small number of voters, if there is no human error, if the public is extensively patient and trusting and patient and will wait for maybe days or weeks to get results, if they can be certified and then sent to the state canvassing board in time for the federal certification, if there are no overvotes or if there are no unintended undervotes, if the writing on the is completely legible for write-in candidates, and if there is extensive resources for money, personnel, and time. We contend that is not the case in 99.9% of the cases in elections, so that it's really just impractical to make this work on a broad basis for anything except perhaps, as we've mentioned, the bill that has a recount in it. That it's not in place, it will not work. We are 100% with any attempt to make, if there are ways to improve the machine counting, we are on board with doing that, but going with the hand counting as currently conceived it really, comparing the problems, there is no comparison. That we endorse the machines as the clerks have described it. And just finally, I'll say I did print off from the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission. I've lost my little thing here, but they have this extensive list of ways with the machine, the personnel, the training, the physical location, safety things, and I've confirmed with the clerks. They all comply with every single one of those guidelines. They make it as safe as possible. If there are ways to improve the machines, we are on board, but the hand counting offers no solution to the problems that people are concerned with. And I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Herman? Go ahead, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Ms. Herman. We've had to close polling places up in Natrona County where I live. And just not as many places to vote anymore. That, I think, is primarily due to just not enough people that we can find to work these places. Is that going on statewide?
Ms. Herman?
Mr. Chairman. I would say yes. Also, that remember how we used to go into schools and in parks and have voting, but the restrictions for the ADA compliance and safety and security, the locations that are appropriate are just not there anymore. I remember hearing one case where someone had mobility issues, so someone offered to drive out and make a little mobile voting place, not possible. So just the restrictions, what is become a suitable voting place is now, you just can't use the places you used to. So that's less, and then the staffing of it, yes, both of those things, and they are problems statewide.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right, let's change over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Marissa Carpio. I work for the Equality State Policy Center. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit that's been in the state for 30 years, focused on fair elections and transparent government. Thanks for your time in listening to the public and us speak after a very long day of budget discussions and discussions on other bills. We are in opposition to this bill with concerns for the cost, time, personnel, volunteer burdens, and lack of accuracy and privacy that comes with hand counting in this method. I will say our executive director is online, and so if it's your preference, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to be in person for any support or questions on her testimony as well.
Okay, so any questions for Ms. Carpio before? Any questions? Do you have anything to wrap it up?
I do have one comment. The fiscal note on this says the following state agencies will be asked to provide their estimate of the administrative fiscal impact prior to the first committee meeting held to consider this bill, the Secretary of State's office. I might have missed it in all honesty, but I have not heard an administrative or fiscal impact report from the Secretary. I worry that passing a bill out of committee with an unnamed price tag might be putting the cart before the horse. So I would say that.
Thank you for that. Any questions on that? So what we'll do is we'll see if there are more testimony in the room, and then we'll go to the online, so we can pick up your partner up there. Any other testimony in the room? Any other testimony in the room? All right, let's go online. Let's start taking people online. It might be helpful to have Ms. DeCero, because she's with the same organization.
So can you see me?
We can see and hear you. In fact, you're a
Mr.
little loud. We're going to turn you down a bit.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman and committee members, election integrity means the process is consistently honest. This describes Wyoming's current system, which in all cases uses paper ballots that are scanned by an electronic machine for tabulation. In fact, this committee and your peers in the Senate and House chambers were all elected via this reliable and trustworthy system. Human mistakes happen, yet they are reconciled swiftly with our current process. It is noteworthy that both the 2024 primary election and the 2024 general elections were certified by the state canvassing board without a single dissenting vote. Furthermore, 94% of Wyoming voters expressed confidence in the accuracy of their county's election processes according to a randomized survey that was published in November 2024 by UW's Wyoming Survey and Analysis Center. Recently, in my home county, our local major political party just held a blotched hand count vote process in their effort to put forward 3 nominees to fill a county official vacancy. This is well documented in our local papers and the commissioner meeting video. If hand counting ballots is a priority, then why did my county's local party fail to demonstrate an accurate hand count with only 84 ballots? Isn't there an adage about sweeping your doorstep first? We, the people, have been using mechanized voting equipment across the nation for over a century, during which styles, such as levers, punch cards, direct recording electronic machines, and now our most modern paper ballots with optical scanners, have evolved for greater accuracy, efficiency, and security. Let's not fall prey to hearsay or conspiracy theories generated outside of Wyoming. SF 184 in front of you is in fact an assault on Wyoming's election integrity, the hardworking people who facilitate our elections, and those who show up to vote. It is disingenuous to suggest that hand counting is an improvement when there are numerous examples across the nation, including that performed by the Honorable Campbell County Clerk, all conclude hand counting as the primary method of processing ballots draws out the delivery of the end results, lays way for increased mistakes, subjective bias, and distrust, as well as has greater potential to violate voter privacy and ballot security. This legislation undermines the investment that counties, the state, and taxpayers already have in our existing trustworthy system. This bill is equivalent to restoring horse and buggy by eliminating automobiles. In reference to an early secret ballot voting system, we strongly encourage you to blackball this bill. I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. DeCero. Questions for Ms. DeCero? We kind of left a big void in the room with reference to a particular county. Do you mind telling us what county has that botched effort?
It was Park County, and it
Okay.
just happened in January.
Okay, but that was not an effort conducted by the county clerk, right? That was the.
No, nope, that was just the local party.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
I had one other thing. We should avoid breaking our existing consistently honest Wyoming election system is all I have left.
So thank you. Any other questions for the lady? All right, thank you. Anything else online? We got others?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the next person is Janet Mader.
Mader?
Yes.
Ms. Mader?
Thank you, Senators. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I'm sure you feel like I do at the end of a long election day, so bless you for keeping going. I am Janet Mader, Campbell County, Senate District 1. I am irked with all the blasting back at Campbell County, our Campbell County Clerk. If Clerk Lovelace had not agreed to allow the hand count ballot lobby group run a practice session in Campbell County Courthouse, there would be nothing to fight about. It is her office. She could set up this session according to current law. It is wrong to turn around and discredit her. If they wanted to do it their way, they could do it at their own location. Up to that point, there was no data available except the hand count lobby data. Now, 2 methods are tested and data is available. Let's keep the facts in the proper perspective. I have been an election judge in Campbell County for many years. I've served on the canvassing board for the past several elections. I've attended logic and accuracy testing for quite a few years. A note on preparing machines for the 2024 general election in Campbell County. All of the clocks on our tabulators had to be reset to Mountain Standard Time because of the daylight time change that had occurred. After listening to 2 sessions of House Corporation Committee and 1 session of Senate Committee testimony, I am much stronger no vote on this bill. I've gone over the bill several times and documented the discrepancies I see in the bill draft and emailed those to committee members, both House and Senate. Listening to testimony, no one is addressing the contents of the bill. They're simply purporting all the world's problems with these electronic machines. I'll share my page here. Title 22 is a huge spider web. This bill inadvertently intersects with many other Title 22 statutes and rules. When the legislature gavels out, the web needs to be intact for voters and election officials. When Wyoming implements hand counting of ballots, it must be done correctly when the chute gate opens for the ride. The nation and the world are watching. The bill draft repeals permit both absentee and write-in voting in Chapter 11 under capabilities required of the system. That's on page 40. This bill adds the cost of acquiring extra space for the counting board. That's not only extra space, but that's extra tables and chairs in Campbell County. We'd have to rent a whole nother hall. The bill draft does not explain how overvotes and accurate hand recording on the ballot will be adjudicated for the voter while the polls are open, which in turn invalidates required voter secrecy. Try and figure out the chain of custody. One place, the county board may start counting 1 hour before the polls close. Another place, the county board cannot start counting until after the polls are closed. The list goes on. In Campbell County, the voter ballots are not sorted by precinct, nor are mail-in ballots before Election Day. Did anyone add cost and time of sorting 7,571 early absentee ballots and opening and sorting our mail-in ballots in 1,396 of those ballots? And we have 37 precincts up here. I have participated in the 2 training sessions in hand counting of ballots and was not impressed with this particular method as written on pages 28 and 29. This method is the choice by a group of lobbyists. What else is out there? Page 15 says, may adopt any hand counting system authorized by law. Page 28 and 29 specifies how the hand count ballot process will be done. Is the process outlined on pages 28 and 29 now authorized law? Are any hand counting systems authorized by law? Does this bill automatically rule that the specifications on page 28 and 29 are the system authorized by law and no other if a clerk finds a system they like better? Everyone needs to read and decipher this bill before saying yes. My issue is not electronic tabulators versus hand ballot counts versus county clerks. My issue is the unintended consequences if this bill is passed as is. The ENS contract will expire sooner than later. The hand count ballot lobby will not go away. There are other hand count ballots moving through the legislature right now. I have not bothered them. This bill is not a clean conversion, ensuring election integrity. For our Campbell County, I'm including this paragraph. I wrote it up. I have heard half a dozen blasts out at our Campbell County clerk, it frustrates me. Our Campbell County general election logic and accuracy test, a person from out of state and another person from out of county showed up for the testing. Neither are residents or registered voters in Campbell County. By the middle of the afternoon, they profoundly declared Campbell County received an F in testing. They spent time criticizing and trying to coerce our clerk and our election director to retest. Our clerk politely would not. They tried to coerce me into coercing our elected clerk to retest according to their dictates. Senators, those two people do not have any legal authority to coerce our county clerk to oblige our demands or perpetuate their stories. They have no legal standing in Campbell County. They are not judge and jury. Their opinions are exactly that, opinions. Neither do I have any authority to coerce our county clerk into retesting. I sat down with our county clerk and discussed the perceived problem. That is all I can do. No citizen is required to attend logic and accuracy testing. No citizen is required to sign off saying correct or incorrect testing. Campbell County uses several days. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. You guys are tired. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your testimony. Let's see if you have any questions. Any questions from the committee? For Ms. Mader? Thank you, Ms. Mader. It's good testimony. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else online?
The next person is Mark Cope,
C-O?
C-O-E-P.
Okay.
It's Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and you guys are running a marathon there. Thank you for doing this and staying up so late. So I will be brief. I'm a resident of Crook County in Wyoming. I'm also the CEO of a technology company. I run an AR and VR technology company, and I can tell you that these machines are absolutely not secure as they exist. There was a question earlier, I think it was earlier today, about where this bill came from. This bill came from us, the people. We wrote it. This is where this bill came from. The reason it was written, and there was a comment earlier about certifying the elections and so forth. ES&S, the contract expires on June 30th, 2026. That's before the next election. That contract in that 5-year period will have cost the state $8.1 million as of that moment in time. So before our next election, we actually have a decision in the state to make. Do we start a new contract with a new vendor and get new machines? Do we extend the contract with the existing provider? The problem with extending the contract with the existing provider is that the tools within that pipeline that they provided us, that technology, does not adhere to the EAC voluntary standards for election equipment. Specifically, there are components on there that are not certified to be used in our elections, and they're currently in our systems right now. During the logic and accuracy test here in Crook County, we inspected the equipment. We asked to be able to see the inside of the Dell machine that actually handles all the counting, and we were told we can't actually see the inside of it. In fact, nobody's seen the inside of it. So you heard some testimony about using the power cord to hack the machine or using Wi-Fi, and we don't know. There's no way to verify that the equipment that we're currently using is valid. So now while I understand that people want the machines because it'll speed things up, it'll make things faster, the problem is that the people don't trust it anymore. In fact, there's a study from Axios that just came out in November of 2024 that shows a really interesting chart. The younger you are, which is actually reverse of what you would expect, the younger you are, the less likely you are to support machine counting. In fact, 50% of millennials don't trust machine counting. So I stand in support of this bill moving forward, in support of hand counts and getting away from these machines. I thank you, and I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cope. Senator Steinmetz. Say it again, please. I'm sorry, sir.
Cap.
Cap? Like cap on your head?
That's close enough.
All right, Mr. Cap. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to keep us a lot later, but since Mr. Cap has claimed origination of the bill, we really haven't had anyone take us page by page through the bill, which I don't think we have the time tonight to do. But we've heard about a lot of discrepancies in the bill. We've also heard there's a mirror bill happening in the House and they're heavily amending that. Is there some way to reconcile that so we're not all doing the same work at the same time? And, what are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Cap.
I would defer. Is Cheryl still in the audience with you there?
Who's Cheryl?
Cheryl Aguilar?
She's online. I can promote her to a panelist.
All right, well, let's finish.
So to answer the question, I can't speak to that.
We'll go to you. Hang on. We'll go to you, and then we can pick up the other lady, okay?
Apologies, Mr. Chairman, yes.
All right, so go ahead. if you can answer Senator Steinmetz' question about,
So this bill is not my bill. We drafted a similar bill and pieces of it were included in this. So I won't take ownership of the bill. I will say that I've reviewed the bill and support it, but I can't answer everything on it as it exists right now, the one you have in your hands.
okay. Anything else? And you used an acronym. It was EAC. What does EAC stand for?
Election, the election law. So your EAC, I don't know. It's late for me. Acronyms. The Election Commission. So all the U.S. Election Commission that certifies, and we have to run all of our laws through that.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Cap? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else online?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the next person is Cheryl Aguiar.
Ms. Aguilar.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good. Just checking to see if you can hear me. My name is Dr. Aguiar. I am probably the primary author. Well, I am the primary author of the bill. So I wanted to get down there today, but my husband is down there for the SLID meeting and I had to stay and hold down the fort. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, the Senate committee, for staying so late to hear us. I am going to tell you, and I can probably answer most questions as far as the bill, but I will not go through all of it, Senator Steinmetz. So it is late. Basically, I wrote this bill because it was a ballot initiative, and I sent it to the Secretary of State, or we did, in January 2024, right? So about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And when we sent it to the Secretary of State, we of course got feedback from the County Clerk Association of Wyoming, or CCAW. We got 7 pages, front to back, single-spaced, edits and suggestions. We incorporated and accepted every single one of them. Okay, just if that helps you at all. So there were a lot of suggestions made in there in regards to certifications, chain of custody, and so on and so forth. In addition, I'm also the county chair of the Hot Springs County, which is Thermopolis, Republican Party. I'm also the state committee woman for Hot Springs County. And as such, I would just wanted to let you guys know, I don't think anybody told you guys this. I know we talked about it in the House, but this bill was unanimously passed as a resolution by the Wyoming GOP. It was brought by 9 counties to so the people, I mean, if you think about the Wyoming GOP, there are 3 people, the state central committee, there are 3 people from every county who represents the smallest form of government in this land, which is the precinct. And that is the only survey really that I can give you that I feel has meat. The survey that they talk about from the University of Wyoming, they like to spout that it's random. I will tell you that I taught statistics at Colorado State University to graduate students. It is not random. It also has 0 statistical power in that it is way under the number. So I'm just move on from that. But anyway, so we've heard a lot of emotion, a lot of hearsay, especially from the negative side, that they're safe and secure. They're reliable. Yeah, they're safe and secure that we can't look at them. They're safe from that. We sure as heck can't look inside those things. And when asked, the motherboard, hey, who makes that motherboard? China. Last I looked, China was an enemy of the United States. Okay, let's see. What do I have for some questions that people have had on the bill? Let's see. Okay. There are basically 3 issues I've heard, and they're basically 3 issues to an election: cost, time, and accuracy. We would like to think that accuracy was the most important. Well, it is the most important thing, obviously, but it's not the only thing in reality. In accuracy, you've already heard from my colleagues, they are the only ones that have had evidence that the machines do have vulnerabilities. I have heard no evidence except a lot of emotional words, safe and secure, that from the other side, right? Because obviously I'm for this bill since I wrote it. Now let's look at cost. We do have a line-by-line spreadsheet, and there's 3 parts to it. One part says, here are the costs that will go away when the machines go away. That is annually, and we got these costs from the Secretary of State's office, invoices, all right? $4.6 million. That goes away. Or we get to keep it and do whatever we want with it, which is more elections, right? Because obviously we do elections. Hand count, there are some costs that aren't going to go away, but they stay there. I mean, we still have to pay the Secretary of State staff. We still have to pay the county clerk staff. We still have to buy ballots. We still have to use the ink, yada, yada. But hand count, like I said, machine elections, annually, $4.6 million. Hand count, under $1 million, all right? Time, let's look at France again, because that seems to be what we're looking at. It is apples to oranges. They are all correct when they said that, because France only hand counts one race. So let's assume that we have 25 races on a ballot. And last year we had 272,000 voters. So we could say that 25 times 272,000, that comes to 6.8 million. So France can count 70 million races in a day, and we would only have to count 6.8 million in a day. So there's your apples to apples. All right, let's see. A couple quick corrections from previous people who've testified in questioning on the bill. I call this the Moab, mother of all bills, yes, but because it's very inclusive. It sort of covers all the things that you have to cover. Those other bills, I kind of call them baby bills, because they're one page, because that's what we all want, one page or 15 seconds late video. But those bills do not include the kinds of things that have to be included in any hand count, which is chain of custody, certifications, yeah, and so on, that everybody has talked about. This is 40 pages, not 48. The testimony from Clerk Lee on e-poll books, you know what? As the author and I co-authored this with people, I had a lot of input. It's not a hill I'd die on. I'm actually okay with e-poll books. I think, and she said that we can't do an election without e-poll books, but she's from Cheyenne, so that probably feels like that to her, and I'm sure they're very helpful. But up to 2022, there were no e-poll books. And in 2022, there were 3 counties who had e-poll books. And unfortunately, they all failed that day because there was no direction and no, whatever you call it, to the clerks. Like, what do you do if this happens? What do you do? I believe Julie Freeze, brilliant clerk, I believe that she wrote the manual. And so I don't think any of those issues will happen again because she's pretty thorough. Anyway, like I said, that's not a hill I'd die on. If you're gonna keep those, as long as there's no machines, I'm good. Let's see, where's my number 3? Okay, the good state committee woman, Janet Mader, who was just on. I really appreciate her edits and her comments. We did hear her testimony in the House with the mirror bill, and we have made 5 amendments, small amendments to the bill based on the great catches that she made. Thank you, colleague, State Committee woman, Janet Mader. Finding people, that's something I'm not going to speculate on. I do know that I didn't do it, but when the people that are sitting in front of you, such as Joe Kaufman and Rich Weber, ran around the state training people, they trained like a couple thousand people. Those people just came there to learn how to do it. So I don't know. There's lots of things we can think about, like jury duty or something. Maybe something is a duty or something, but they start at 6 o'clock. It would not be the same people, obviously. We could bring in some other people. Maybe it's a civics class at the high school or something like that. I'm just throwing things out. Who knows? And as far as the Carbon County State Committee man, Mr. Krente, he was like, and that's a good question. It's a super good question. Why has nobody been charged? Why has there been no identification of these issues? I mean, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Okay, let me give you one example. I hate to do this, but I'm going to go back to Weston County again. But in Weston County, when the machine took 1,612, I think, votes from Senator Nyman and put them with the write-in, when they did the hand count, what you might not know is that they also found that 62 commissioner votes were flipped. And we complained, right? And written complaint. And what was said was, well, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Well, okay, but I think you know what the point was. It was missed.
Are you close
okay,
to wrapping it up, ma'am?
I am. Air gaps.
Okay.
I have a great clerk in Hot Springs County. She says, I asked her, I said, hey, I want to look at the air gaps. She goes, well, there's no need for air gaps because there's no modem. Anyway, I think that's basically it. I would say that, as far as a lot of these procedure questions that people have, why isn't there more procedure? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do the other thing? Honestly, Mr. Chairman, we have a constitution, and there's articles in the Constitution, and they are further explained by statutes, further detailed, and then statutes are further detailed by rules. And there is a handbook on rules, and I have every faith in our Secretary of State's office, his elections committee, and him, and probably a select committee of great clerks, because we've got a lot of them, to write the rules that would fall under the statutes that we have in there, which I believe are enough. I stand on and for this bill, obviously, and I urge you not to put it in committee. Putting it in committee puts it into the budget session next year, which means you have to have a 2/3 vote. And then after that, if it doesn't go, we put it in again, and it goes into 2026, and we have lost election after election after election. Thank you, and I stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Aguilar? Any questions? Ms.
Dr.
Aguilar?
It's
thank you.
Dr. Aguiar.
I hear you. What's your doctorate in?
It's in experimental psychology and statistics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I don't think we have any questions. Anybody else online?
Mr. Chairman, the last person was Brent Bien, and I can't, he declined to be a panelist, but I'm trying to see if he'll unmute his phone.
Mr.
I'm on. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we don't have any video. We didn't have any on the last one either. Video's more helpful.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I don't want to belabor this too much here. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time along with the committee members. This is fantastic. Just a great opportunity to talk about this bill, Senate File 184. And I'm from Park County, and I am testifying as the chairman of BCR Voter Initiatives. And I want to kind of give you a background on why, as Ms. Aguilar, Dr. Aguilar just testified on why we did what we did, just to kind of sum it up so everybody understands. And as you know, the power and authority that you have, your panel has as elected officials, has been vested in you by the people. As such, the power and authority of voting is inherent to the people. Therefore, it's the government's responsibility to facilitate fair, transparent, and secure elections as necessary to ensure that every vote counts for the intended recipient. The reason we started this was all based on the 2020 controversial presidential election. It highlighted the necessity to scrutinize the processes, procedures, and equipment used to carry out elections in Wyoming. As a result, BCR Voter Initiatives found that most citizens with whom we interacted across the state, and we're talking thousands of people, there's a handful of people, and a few of them are sitting in that room with you right now, who have been all over this state talking with the people about this very issue. But we found that most of the people, a vast majority of the people who normally participate in the election process, do not trust the machines, yet continue to vote out of their patriotic duty. We also found that those who opted out of the election process cited a lack of trust in the machines as their primary reason. Therefore, BCR Voter Initiatives, in partnership with Cause of America, led a statewide effort to thoroughly examine Wyoming elections and expose any vulnerabilities in the standing ES&S voting systems. The examination, and some of this has already been talked about, included a rigorous campaign in each of the 23 Wyoming counties focused on ES&S logic and accuracy testing, system interfaces with prescribed equipment, and the suitability of training per the system operations manual, which we've already talked about, is roughly 250 pages. As you have heard in previous testimony, many discrepancies were found in the processes, procedures, and equipment, all of which were communicated to the Wyoming Secretary of State prior to both the 2024 primary and general elections. A vast majority of the discrepancies revolved around the failure of counties to correctly conduct the system logic and accuracy testing, thereby potentially affecting the outcome, and again, potentially affecting the outcome of subsequent elections. As a result, we trained a vast cadre of hundreds of people across the state, of just local citizens across the state, in a simple, highly accurate, and cost-effective standardized method of hand counting paper ballots as a means to mitigate electronic voting inadequacies if the need arose. Regarding an earlier testimony from the clerks present, and again, the clerks have a tough job, and the current system makes it very hard for them to do their job. But for those present, it is difficult to believe that those duly elected officials have a greater sense of loyalty to a taxpayer-funded association, or so it seems, than the will of the people they are elected to represent. No evidence was presented either this morning or this evening, nor that can be presented, that guarantees the fidelity, accuracy, and security of the ES&S voting system. Conversely, my colleagues who have testified in front of you this morning and this evening in support of Senate File 184 have produced definitive, nonpartisan, and quantifiable evidence of the standing ES&S voting system vulnerabilities. The first step in protecting the people's liberty is to ensure that their elections are fair, transparent, and secure. It is the government's responsibility to do whatever is necessary to gain the trust of the citizenry. Resident Wyoming voters should have confidence in our elections and trust that their vote will count for the intended recipient. Senate File 184 is the most comprehensive bill written, including the amendments that Dr. Aguiar just discussed, that address the problems found during our intense examination and provides associated remedies to alleviate systemic problems inherent to the standing process. And therefore, Mr. Chairman and committee, I implore you to advance Senate File 184 and to lead this nation in the process of getting more transparent and greater fidelity in our elections. Again, thank you for your time and attention.
Any questions for Mr. Bean?
Yeah.
Senator?
Mr. Bean, I have to say I take exception to your comment that our county clerks out across the state are more beholden to a taxpayer-funded association than they are people who elected them. That's not the case. I've chaired this committee. I've been on this committee a long time. That just simply isn't the case. And I think you ought to be careful throwing that kind of stuff around. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll let you respond, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I quantify that by those who were present. And if we want to go further on this, the taxpayers should not be funding these associations for elected officials, but that's a different topic.
And then, sir, would you tell me what VCR voter stands for?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. BCR Voter Initiative simply stands, it's rocket science for Brent, Cheryl, and Rich. That's myself, Cheryl Aguiar, and Rich Weber. Voter Initiative, so we are a political action committee.
I see. Anybody else? Questions for the gentleman? Thank you, sir. Is anybody else online? Okay, I think we've got everybody in the room. Committee, we've heard a lot of testimony. We haven't gone through the bill. I think it's going to be impossible to move this bill forward. But does anybody want to give a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not prepared for motion. This is complicated, and at a late hour to take this on.
Pull that close because you're always
At a
the
late-
softest votes.
Yeah, as a late hour to take this kind of complicated bill on with a motion, I'm concerned that
Okay,
I'm not ready at this point. This is detailed. Appreciate the work that's got into it, but I'm not ready to move it forward at this point until we have even a more in-depth look.
okay, thank you. Anybody else? Senator Boner.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this bill. I do support a more incremental method where perhaps we can incorporate hand counting into the current system. It's been said we don't know what we don't know. We've heard lots of criticism, which is good, of the electronic means. But I wonder what the opposite side of that coin is, the vulnerabilities that we open up when we begin hand counting as well, which have not been well explored tonight. So there are other bills out there that take a more moderate approach and kind of ease into this. I'm glad to have worked with the prime sponsors, especially in the House, on those. I'll be looking to support bills such as those that take these one step at a time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I really do appreciate the passion everybody has shown and all the effort and coming down here and spending the whole day. And I've learned from every one of you. I appreciate that. I don't hear about this in my hometown. I just don't. We've got a wonderful county clerk and nobody comes to me with this. They just don't. I live in a different community than in Platte County or Weston County, and I'm sorry that some of you folks have run into some stuff. That said, I join my colleagues. I'm just not ready to move this. I'm intrigued that there might be something coming from the other side that might be a step we can take. This is a huge bill, late in the session, late at night, and a great big policy consideration that I'm just not ready to make tonight. So thank you.
Okay, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too appreciate all the work and all of the time and effort and all of the issues that you have brought to light. I'm ready to look at what the House brings over because this is a huge and a complicated bill. I'm brand new on this committee. I don't know what I don't know. I mean, this is very, very complicated. And if it was an Ag Committee bill, Mr. Chairman, it might be a little different. I'd have a little more expertise, but I don't feel comfortable making a decision on something that I would need to study a lot more to make sure we're not inadvertently messing something up. I will listen with an open mind if you get the House bill amended and bring it over to us, the mirror bill. But at this point, I'm not comfortable moving it just because I'm so inexperienced on this committee.
Thank you, Senator. I have a kind of a general question, I think, to the clerks and the organization. It was mentioned by the witnesses that the organization or individual clerks, I'm not sure what, provided 7 pages of comments on a proposed ballot measure, which later was incorporated as this bill. I need to know what it certainly wouldn't be that after they incorporated all of those that you now support the bill. I know that's not possibly it. Was that to make the bill workable? Or what was that purpose? Sorry, committee, but this seemed like a piece of hanging chat out there. Mr. Irvin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Malcolm Irvin. I'm the Platte County Clerk, but also the president of the County Clerks Association. Trying to find the letter itself, actually.
Well, just in general terms, but.
So, Mr. Chairman, our memo was dated March 9th, 2024. When that voter initiative was brought to the Secretary of State's office, the Secretary of State's office asked us to review it. And we simply said, here are our comments regarding the initiative. We appreciate the opportunity, blah, 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 blah. Our comments on the proposed initiative is not an endorsement of the initiative itself. However, we understand the purpose of the initiative is to gauge whether the public supports the proposal or not. As such, we have focused on the administrative concerns in the proposed initiative and not focus on comments on the reliability, efficiency, or accuracy of hand tabulation. And so, Mr. Chairman, our focus really was just that. Make it workable. Those 7 pages worth of edits were incorporated, yes.
Okay.
New things were added to the bill as well. And so it's not a bill that we had read prior to a week ago. We've had other comments which we've given to you here today. Aside from that, Mr. Chairman, our focus has tried to be from an administrative point of view. You are the policymakers. If that's the will of the legislature, we follow what the law is. Despite accusations that are made, and unfortunately, we've not been afforded the due process of law. But Mr. Chairman, whatever that law says, whatever your policy position is, that's what we try to administer and do administer. So when we focus on our comments, we really do sincerely try to make them crafted to, can we make it workable? That's why we worked so hard on other bills on the other side, a lot of which is incorporated in Senate File 190, by the way, that we did have specific administrative comments on that are workable.
Okay, so just let me try to summarize. So you provided 7 pages of comment on workability, which you felt were the clerks felt were incorporated in an earlier draft, but that's not the draft that's before us now, that it's evolved a bit from there. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that is fair. I think that's natural, that it
Sure.
incorporates and it added some things, took some things. So
Okay.
it's not the exact same that we commented on.
That's what I was trying to find out. So thank you, Mr. Hur- Anything else from Mr. Owen? Thank you, sir. Committee, thank you very much. I'm still not detecting a motion on the bill. I'm overwhelmed by the fact that all of the counties that are advocating for this and where some trials have sort of happened, except for Campbell County, have been small counties. Relatively, not your Laramie County, not your Natrona County, not your Fremont County. You know, I think that probably elections are different animals in different counties. And if you have 7,500 residents in Weston County, that's counting one thing. You know, more than 100,000 residents in Laramie County, that's a different thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, you were just making notes. I thought he was making me a note. So,
Made a note of what he said.
anyway, this is definitely a ripe topic for interim. The committee does very good interim work. And we may have a big deal on redistricting possibilities for interim, and we may have this bill if committees so want to bring it forward. But I'm going to ask one more time, is there a motion on this bill? I'm not hearing a motion on this bill. So I think we'll adjourn. We're going to pick back up on Friday morning. Tentatively, I'm thinking 8 o'clock. We only have those 2 bills, the president's bill and that large electrical load bill. Thanks, you guys.